Welcome back, everybody, to the Liverpool Reaction, an American LFC podcast. My name is Salim, and I'm joined by my co-host, Coach Ralph. Coach, how you doing?
Not too bad, Salim, considering a disappointing week.
Yeah, it was a disappointing week. The first game at Goodison Park versus Everton. What were some of your takeaways from that game?
I think the biggest thing was I listened to a lot of the BBC and the pundits and all this kind of stuff, and prior to the game, when they talk about derby games, whether it's Liverpool or it's somebody else, they always talk about how form goes out the window. And then subsequently, the game as it panned out, Everton were more than up for the occasion and they won. So then they registered surprise. So I kind of find it funny trying to reconcile these same pundits talking in two different ways about a derby game. I think the truth of the matter is that in recent times, Everton victories have been few and far between. So why they talk about form going out the window is beyond me. But then when they win, having talked about form going out the window, then they talk about surprise. I don't get it. But anyway, to the actual game itself, it turned out to be one possible scenario that I thought could be. I think one thing that really helped the Blues coming into the game was they got a result the weekend before against Nottingham Forest, because it was such a vital game for them against a team that they're competing with, as it were, to stay in the Premier League. And they won well, and that gave them a lot of confidence. I think that gave them a lot of confidence. And the one thing that slightly surprised me about the way that they played was they were a little more aggressive in terms of going forward. And they had a nice mixture of pressuring Liverpool and then at other times sitting back and kind of soaking up the pressure, keeping play in front of them, which is kind of, it was the latter scenario that I anticipated, because even with all best options firing well, Liverpool, they can still struggle against teams that sit in. I think that's always been a factor in recent seasons. So Everton had their game plan and it was well executed. And from a Liverpool perspective, the one thing that I didn't get early on was we all knew that one of Everton's strengths are set pieces. And Liverpool conceded so many free kicks in and around the attacking third. And they'd already escaped once with that penalty decision that was overruled because there was an offside.
Yeah.
That they had escaped once, but it was looking like it wasn't going to be forever. And so it proved. And in the end, it was kind of a scrappy goal, but a goal nonetheless. And so Liverpool really had been playing Russian roulette at that point, and they finally got punished for doing it.
Yeah, it was interesting, the corner kicks to the back post and how Tarkowski was kind of blocking Van Dijk from backing up. And, I mean, it was just over and over and over again. And the first goal came off a scramble after a corner kick. And then the second goal, Calvert-Lewin, I don't think he's ever been so open in his life. And, it was an easy header down. And, again, same idea, just blocking Van Dijk from backing up. Really genius game plan. And Sean Dyche's teams in general, are solid defensively and are usually pretty good in the air. His old Burnley teams were like that as well. And I think you said it best. They executed their game plan to perfection. And it seems like Now they have a couple wins in a row, and Sean Dyche really kind of has them playing the way he wants them to. And, Diaz hits the post in the 69th minute. And, I mean, it just couldn't get moving, couldn't get rolling. But, yeah, they did a good mixture of both. Like you said, they pressured and they backed up and they parked the bus and then they pressured. And the corner kicks were just pretty much what did us in.
Correct. Yeah. So like you've got to give the opponent credit for that. I mean, I'm not one of the persuasion that would like to see Everton go down because I'm a supporter of football on Merseyside. I'm not a blue. I don't like to lose a derby, and I would hate to play second fiddle to Everton. But at the same time, I think historically the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester, Merseyside and Greater Manchester, goes way beyond football. And living on the other side of the ocean, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
I think over time I've become more and more aware of it. So even though the Blues were all delighted because they've denied us a shot at the title and everything, and okay, I can see that, but I've never really been in a situation where in my lifetime Liverpool have been in the shadow of their neighbours, and I think for a long time Everton have been in Liverpool's shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and conversely, I am pleased that they're staying in the Premier League because I want to see two good Premier League teams on Merseyside, and for me it's that simple. But not all of my peers are in agreement. I'm aware of that.
Yeah, you're being very diplomatic about that too. About having two teams, a Merseyside, be in the Premier League. I think you're the minority there. I think I think a lot of people would like to see Everton go down, but I think they deserve the win. They deserve to stay up. The financial fair play penalty that they got is still mind-boggling. How them and Nottingham Forest have penalties and Manchester City does not. But they played well. I mean, it was a physical game. I think they bullied Liverpool a little bit. We couldn't get moving, couldn't get going, and it felt like the Atalanta game, second leg, second half. But I would give Atalanta more of a defensive know-how or expertise versus Everton's. Not saying that Everton has a bad defense. I think they have some really good players. When Ashley Young came in the second half, I just started thinking, here we go. And just nothing came of it.
Yeah, I think that you have to appreciate, though, that at that point, Everton were a goal up. The crowd was firmly behind them. And Liverpool were feeling the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were feeling the pressure for sure. So for me, the key part of the game were the two chances missed just before half-time.
Mm-hmm.
Núñez and Diaz both had clear sights of the Everton goal, and both times they shot at Pickford.
Yeah.
And I mean, Pickford, what he did, what he should do in that situation in terms of he made himself as big as he could. And both times the Liverpool players shot right at him. When unfortunately, if you look to the Pickford's right, the far post, probably if they'd gone for the far post, they'd have tucked it in. Both occasions. But I think it's easy for us, whether you're in the stands or you're watching on television, to be the experts on that. But yeah, credit to Pickford. I thought he had a good game, but at the same time, I think that those chances were presentable and really for players at that level, they should be finished. But I think that this has been one of the two-pronged issue that Liverpool have had ever since the Manchester United game. The first one is they have missed an absolute ton of chances,
mm-hmm.
which has been well recorded. But the other one is the softness of defence, and I think that was shown even more against West Ham at the weekend, because starting to remind me a little bit of the Simon Mignolet era defensively at times now. But we can come on to West Ham in due course.
Yeah. Yeah, I have in my notes, what happened to our defense, and I'm sure it's a lot of things. There's probably a connectivity issue between the team moving up and down as a whole, but it just seems that, if we have 7 chances and miss them, the other team has 3 chances, but they're better chances, and they put them away.
Right.
Yeah, well, it's tough.
Yeah. It is what it is right now. As we've said many times on previous podcasts, it's good that Liverpool create the chances, but they can only blame themselves if time and time again they don't finish them. And unfortunately for Liverpool and Liverpool supporters worldwide, that's how it is right now.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the West Ham Liverpool game at London Stadium. This one had some controversies all over the place. So because we did a very good Everton, we previewed the game. That's the word I was looking for on the last episode, and we just talked about what happened. The West Ham game, I mean, we'll start with our general reactions, but you can't help but just go right to Salah and Klopp arguing on the sidelines, and then the goalkeeper and the referee situation where the goalkeeper kind of rolls the ball out when he's about to kick it, but the whistle never blew, and Gapco goes up to it to tap it in, and he looks back at the ref, and the ref blows his whistle and says, "Wait, hold." I mean, how many times are these things going to happen this year? We have the situation where Doku pretty much jump kicked McAllister in the chest, no call. Odegaard handled the ball in the box in the first game against Arsenal, no call. Luis Diaz scoring a perfectly good goal. I don't remember the team. That might have been Tottenham, actually.
Yeah, Tottenham.
And, they say it's no goal. I mean, I'm sure there are other teams that follow their teams, other people that follow their teams carefully can probably shout out a couple of things that have happened. But these things just are just strange. I've never seen so many happen in one season to one team.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think every team in the Premier League will probably feel at times that they've been hard done by. I think in the case of Liverpool, it's been against top rival teams and at vital times in games that that these incidents have occurred. I think it's got something to do with not just that VAR has been poorly employed. I think it's got a lot to do, unfortunately, with referees, the PGM, OL, whatever you want to call them. They have tied themselves in knots in terms of trying to analyze and try to come up with solutions for every situation to a point where they confuse themselves. And not only have they tied themselves in knot, but they've also tied a knot for a noose for themselves.
Right.
Because we've had all the VAR decisions, and you had the Nottingham Forest situation where there was a big furore at the end of the game over the referee giving possession to Liverpool rather than Nottingham Forest. And that, by the way, wasn't a VAR type of incident. That was a refereeing mistake. And he'd made the same mistake in the first half, but the other way around.
Yeah.
And so they're making lots of mistakes now. And I think it's because there's over-analysis. There's also the situation vis-a-vis VAR, and we can talk about it till we're blue in the face, and we have done. I just think it's not going to change. It's not going to change, and I think sadly, I mean, like the game is always going to change, but I think when it comes down to officiating, that I think we're on a path where ultimately, probably won't be in our lifetime, but it'll probably be well on the way to it. That it'll all be automated. It'll be done by robots, AI, whatever.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I notice, I hear some of the pundits are kind of talking about these minuscule offside calls and everything, and now they accept them, which I find that very hard to accept, whether it's for Liverpool or it's against Liverpool, where you get such marginal decisions, and I'm very much old school from the point of view of the spirit of the game.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that what's happening is that to some degree, I think the referees, as I say, they've confused themselves, and they also feel that they have an automated system behind them that is supposedly going to get them out of hot water. It doesn't, because there's always this element of subjectivity, whether it's VAR or it's a human being. There's always, there's a human being behind VAR.
Yeah, it's a tough job, officiating, professionals and the speed of the game, but a lot of these calls are just appear simple, at least from my vantage point watching through a TV. They seem pretty simple, and I think you're right that at some point down the line, there'll be more technology utilized to maybe better officiate these games, or to help the the referees really kind of get a better idea of what's happening and to help them out. The refs, I can understand how difficult it is to do their job. I just want to reiterate that. Like, it's not an easy job. Everybody's looking at you and making sure that you kind of call the game appropriately for both sides. And I just don't know what else to say about that. I mentioned, the four situations that happened to Liverpool. And like we said, there's a bunch of fans of other teams that can probably point to a bunch of them. But at what point do the refs get fired or get demoted or, get reprimanded? And also the VAR system, why do referees need to be there doing that? Why can't we get experts in VAR or train some VAR experts to kind of control that aspect of the game? Because you're right, they have like a safety net now, or what they think is a safety net. And it's not, because they have certain calls that they can make on the field that cannot be challenged. And when they challenge a play, it's specific to a situation. So it's just strange.
Yeah. Logically, I think that we need VAR experts, for want of a better word. Logically, I think a lot of it kind of goes back to the history of officiating, in terms of I grew up under a system, and I think it was kind of well embroiled in English football, that the referee couldn't be questioned. The referee didn't have to explain decisions. And I think that it probably worked to a point, but in a changing world, in 2024, I don't really think it's applicable anymore.
Yeah,
especially when you look at other sports. So I know that when they have the Six Nations for rugby now, that you can watch it in this country, and I watch those games too. And you see their equivalent of VAR operates in a different way. It'll still have some controversy, but it's it's just a better system because everybody can hear what the decision is. It's because they're mic'd up. And even if you don't agree with the decision, at least you can kind of see or hear what's going on. Nobody's in the dark, whether they are in the stadium or they're watching the game on TV.
Yeah.
And the process is clear. And I just feel that the English referees, I don't know what it's like so much in other countries, they are so protective of their position that they're not willing to go that far at this point. I don't think that they're willing, to my knowledge, to allow outsiders, as it were, to come in and be involved with the VAR system, because as has been pointed out on numerous occasions, it feels like they get reluctant to call out their friends and say, "Hey, you made a mistake."
Yeah.
I think that happens all the time, and it feels that way. It feels like they're judging the referee's decision. All this business about clear and obvious error, I don't see that that's relevant. Surely the idea is the correct decision, rather than a clear and obvious error. So, so they end up saying on certain calls, whether it's a handball or a trip or anything, oh, well, it wasn't given as a penalty, but I could see why it could be. And that really just reflects the fact that there is just no consistency and basically anything could happen. So for example, the Odegaard handball against Liverpool. I mean, how many times have we seen penalties given for that? And then other times you don't see it given.
Right.
And so, I mean, personally on handball, and I think I've said this before, I'd like to see them use more of a ball to hand type thing as we used to have.
Right.
Now it's all this arm away from the body, and so really, if the arm's away from the body, if that's what they're going to call and it's black and white, then it's a penalty. It's a penalty. I don't like that decision personally, or I don't like that philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
But then sometimes they don't do it, and it's not always clear why. I mean, I can understand that they can say, "Oh, well, he's only a yard away," and all this kind of stuff. But then other times he will be a yard away, and they call it. So yeah, there's no rhyme and there's no real reason to what they're doing. It's just a classic example of just inconsistency.
Okay, Coach. Well, that's enough of VAR. Let's get into the West Ham game. What are some of your thoughts on the game?
Well, in many respects, it was the game that I expected, with West Ham sitting back. But I think the first thing to talk about was looking at the starting 11s for each team, because clearly Jurgen Klopp made a lot of changes to the team after the disappointment of the Derby loss. Mm-hmm. And I actually looked at the West Ham team and thought, that is a pretty good lineup. They look strong. And I wondered at that point whether they were going to try to take the game to Liverpool. But as it turned out, they didn't. Like, they tended to sit in, so Liverpool had a lot of possession. And because they were strong from time to time, West Ham would create a chance or two, but it wasn't kind of, as I said, they weren't going to take the game to Liverpool. They just had good players, Kudus, Bowen, lads like this.
Yeah, Paqueta.
Yeah, Paqueta as well. I mean, like, they're good players, like the top players. So they created a few chances, and then lo and behold, just before half time, they did take the lead, which in some respects you could say, well, perhaps they didn't merit, but they had their game plan, and it looked to be working at that point. So 1-0 to the Hammers at half time. Of course, the early goal in the second half for Liverpool changed things. And then we went back into the pattern that we've seen in recent games where the Reds basically missed, 3, 4, 5 golden opportunities to score a second goal. And they didn't. And then they did score through, and I don't know whether the 2 goals that Liverpool scored on this day is a comment on how things have been going. First, we get one from Andy Robertson, a fullback who doesn't score that often. And then the second goal, I think it hit like 4 West Ham players before it went in.
Yeah.
and so during the second half and after that again, Liverpool's creating chances and you feel that they should be drawing ahead, but they just didn't take him, which is very much the pattern of the recent games. And the game turned on one incident, which I don't know if you recall, but there was a cross in from the left. And Alisson was coming out to take it. And for some reason, I guess he must have taken his eye off the ball. It hit him on the head. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it was panic stations. The ball wasn't cleared. It went to Emerson. Alisson made a great save. Ball still wasn't cleared conclusively. Bowen gets it, turns it in. And Antonio heads a good equaliser. And the whole kind of passage of play there for me was very, very reminiscent of the Simon Mignolet era, where all of a sudden things are going wrong and you think, oh gosh, we're going to give up another goal, because whilst West Ham had created chances in the first half, I can't really recall anything in the second half until the ball hit Alisson's head.
Yeah, the Antonio goal, the Antonio header, to be fair, was really, really well done. And Bowen, his goal off a corner again. And I think you're right about the Liverpool goals. You know, we're kind of used to seeing nice goals, beautiful goals from Liverpool, and they were just kind of scrappy. Even Robo's goal was just, I don't know how Areola didn't save it. I think he didn't see it until it was too late. But it wasn't like a hard shot or anything great. He just kind of put it towards the goal and it went in. And yeah, I mean, you're so right about the deflections off Gakpo's shot. I mean, it fired into one guy and then it fired into another guy and then it just hit Areola in the shoulder and it went in. At that point, though, I was thinking, okay, well, they're not great goals, but at least we get some luck here. And then the whole passage of play you described about Antonio and Jared Bowen's cross. Kwanzaa lost Antonio for a split second, and it was enough for Antonio to score. I think Antonio hasn't been as good as as in the past, because he's a really good forward, and it just reminded me of some of the goals he scored in the past, and he's a good player. And you're right, with it probably, it went kind of as we expected. I just thought maybe after Gakpo's goal, I was thinking, I'm fine with a 2-1 win like this. Like, that's fine. Let's just kind of see it out. Mm-hmm. And they get that one chance and they put it away. I like the fact that there were scrappy goals, even though there was a little bit of luck, but it was good to be ahead, even if it was only for 12 minutes.
But at the end of the day, again, I think particularly in the second half, Liverpool, in keeping with recent games, created a lot of opportunities that at least one or two of them should be going in.
Yeah,
and I think the West Ham game, whilst it shows that, it also illustrates that at the other end of the park, Liverpool have been too vulnerable. So even though they don't concede, like they do concede chances, Liverpool, because of the way that we play, and we've talked about that before, but they don't concede anywhere near as many chances as the ones that they create. Mm-hmm. And I think that the two things combined, the weakness at the back and the inability to score quality chances, is really what has hijacked the season, coming into the home straight.
Yeah, it's a recipe for disaster.
Oh yeah, very much. Very much so.
So we couldn't finish the job. What do you think has happened to the defense? Is it just the chances are just that good, or are we doing something defensively incorrect? What do you think's happening back there?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the defence hasn't been as settled as it might have been. I mean, even when Liverpool were on that good run with all the injuries, they were still conceding goals, especially early in the game. And I think the difference now, though, is because they haven't received a get out of jail card, as it were, with the forwards misfiring. I think that's added up, and they're under a little more pressure. I think that's a factor. And I mean, basically, if Liverpool, West Ham, Man United, all these games, if they'd have scored at the other end, it wouldn't have mattered so much because they were winning.
Yeah.
And so I guess the goal output at that point of the season was hiding a multitude of sins, as they say, and Liverpool weren't totally solid. Say like Arsenal are, for example. Arsenal are rock solid at the back.
With kind of our defensive frailties and misfiring because of our style of play, also the defensive frailties. It's interesting to see because we love the style that Liverpool play. It's full action. It's press. Is there a way to kind of combine the two where you're not conceding as many chances? Not Jose Mourinho style, but how do you mesh both together?
Well, I think the fact is that there have been times in the past when they've done that, notably the season that they won the title. So I guess if you look back at that season, Liverpool was settled at the back. They were absolute dynamite with the front three of Salah on form, Firmino and Mane, sorry. And that was just a team at its ultimate peak under Jurgen Klopp. Because even a couple of years ago, when they were chasing the quadruple, they were not quite as solid at the back as they had been, say, a year or two previously. So, aging players, teams will analyse the way that Liverpool play and look to exploit it. So the obvious thing that they did was put a lot of pressure on Trent. Put a lot of pressure on that side of the field because he is very far forward. He plays very far forward, and again, we've talked about this before. The recovery time for him. If they put a good winger on that side of the field or a good wide forward, then all of a sudden you've got Trent struggling to get back, and then one of the central defenders has to get pulled across.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Andy Robertson is a decent left back defensively, but he's up and down the pitch as well. He's up and down. So I think it's inevitable that there's going to be space, and teams will try to exploit that space. But I think that the thing for the new manager, I don't know what his style will be. I've heard some suggestion it could be three at the back. He needs pacey defenders. And so it'll be interesting to see how Arne Slot goes.
Yeah. Before we get to Arne Slot, I think it's official, semi-official, that he's going to be the new manager. Let's talk a little bit about Salah and Jurgen Klopp when Salah came into the game, and they seemed to be arguing about something. Is this kind of the moment that we can say Jurgen has kind of run out of energy and his team is feeling it as well? Or is it just a disagreement between two men that are just frustrated at the situation?
Probably both. It's probably both because Jurgen Klopp is leaving, and he cited the fact that he's running out of energy. So he must have been on a high for a while, and then all of a sudden things go awry. So I have to believe that takes it out of him.
Yeah, sugar.
And
It's
I
almost
think
like a sugar crash.
yeah, and then with Mo Salah, he's just not been playing well, and I think it was pretty clear that it wasn't a rotation. He was dropped.
Yeah,
And so he's having difficulties because he's the one player on the team that I say has an ego. And whilst it's not at the Cristiano levels, he still has an ego because there have been times in the past when he's shown his displeasure, primarily when he's replaced in the game. So yeah, there's obviously something going on, and whilst you don't like to see it happen, particularly at a time when things aren't going the way of the team, I'm not sure that it's that serious. I guess the question is whether or not he's going to stay, and the rumor has it that he's being offered a new contract. But I can't help but wonder if they're offering him a new contract, but they're still going to sell him.
Yeah, I think it could be just kind of not showing all their cards, because if Saudi Arabia comes in, with him 1 year left on his contract versus, say, he's extended for 2 more years, the fee will be higher. And how do you feel about that? Do you think it's time, that Salah moves on and we move on from Salah? It's a tough decision because,
well, also it's a business decision because,
right.
Because if they keep him for another season, then he goes for zero.
Correct.
And whilst I've let a couple of players do that in recent years, I'm sure part of the thinking was because they probably looked at it and said, well, we're not going to get big bucks for these guys, because they're in the latter stages of their career. Mo Salah is different. I don't know how much he would get, say, from a top European team, or even if a top European team would consider buying him. But I'm pretty certain that Saudi Arabian team would fork out the dollars for him because of his heritage, if nothing else.
Yeah, and my understanding is he's the most popular player in the Middle East because of his
background.
Correct. Yeah.
Mm.
With there's a couple things I mentioned a couple weeks back. It looks to me like I said Salah lost a step. I don't think it's a step. I think he's lost like a half step. Something is not clicking to me. But we also mentioned it could be, the return from injury. His hamstring might not be 100%. It might be, say, 90%, and that could be the reason. But with that, I prefer, I think, moving forward, that we do get the money for him and let Arne kind of make a decision on, who he wants to bring in. Because if you remember, Coutinho got sold to Barcelona, and that really changed the whole atmosphere at Liverpool from a standpoint of being able to buy Van Dijk and Alisson, and those were huge signings for the team. They made an immediate impact, and I'm just curious if this might be the thing with Salah as well. Granted, there'll be a new manager. Granted, there'll be a new system. Granted, it'll be a little adjustment period. All those things.
Well, I think the situation's different from Coutinho because Coutinho was younger. I mean, Salah's in his 30s now, so maybe he's lost half a step or whatever. But basically, he's just off form. And I think that was shown very clearly after he came on, because Liverpool cleared the ball and he got the ball. It was right around the centre circle type area. And all of a sudden he's away. And actually he was showing real pace. And he was coming down the middle of the field. He's being chased by a couple of West Ham players. And he had Núñez to the left. And he saw Núñez and he tried to give it to him. And the only problem was it was several yards behind Núñez.
Yeah.
So basically everything petered out. And that's just symptomatic of how he's been playing recently. So, yeah, he's getting older. So, so he may lose some of his qualities, but he's off form. He's very clearly off form.
All right. And the bigger news this week from a manager standpoint was Arne Slot, semi-official new manager. Seems like everything's been kind of worked out, and Liverpool are giving about 11 million euros to Feyenoord for Arne Slot. And I did a little bit of research on him. He does have a similar style from as Klopp from a standpoint of pressing, but it's more controlled pressing. It's not constant pressing. One thing I've noticed as kind of reviewing the way he sets up teams is that when they press, when somebody has a bad touch, when something just kind of goes awry from the other team, that's when they start moving forward. So it's interesting to see how he's going to implicate that into the team from a standpoint of, we're going to press, but I want you to choose when you press, and we press as a team when this happens or that happens. I've also seen him described as, from a defensive standpoint, he wants to be much more organized, much more rock solid in the back as well. So when I kind of mentioned how do we mix these two things together, from what I've been seeing, he has a balance of both of these things. But again, Feyenoord to Liverpool, huge jump. The Dutch league is probably 5th or 6th best league in Europe, to one of the top leagues in Europe, and a very competitive league in the Premiership. Very interesting to see how he does. I was talking to a friend also about Arne Slot, and he told me, Michael Edwards and the statistics and all the things that they kind of look at, it would make sense for them to kind of move towards somebody that maybe isn't seen as, an obvious replacement.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know much about him previous to him being in his current situation. So I'm seeing a lot of these things on YouTube about him, and everybody wants to analyze it, and we've seen this before with Amarin, we've seen this before with Alonso.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, for me, it's an open book. I have no idea. I think we have to believe in Edwards and his recruitment process, basically.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Next week we have, we're playing Tottenham, and we'll see what happens there. But everybody, thank you for listening. It's been an interesting couple weeks for Liverpool, but let's keep the faith. Let's close on a high, and especially the last game versus Wolves, let's make sure that Jurgen gets the love he deserves. Maybe it's not the way we wanted it to end, but it's been a great run, great 9 years, and we're very lucky to have had such a great manager.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, everybody, take care, and we'll talk to you next time.